Good morning, short stories class. Thank you so much for doing the discussion board and getting your papers in and sending me emails. And you guys have really come through for me, helping me do my job at my best. Emma, thank you for sending me encouraging emails, and the rest of you all being very positive about everything. That's how we're going to get through. And we have just a little fewer than 3 weeks left. So I think we're about halfway through the distance learning part of the class, and we're almost at the end of the semester. Kind of sad, but summer's going to be pretty nice. So today we have John Steinbeck's great little short story, Chrysanthemums. And it's a nice example of John Steinbeck, who wrote a number of very fine novels and short stories. And Steinbeck is really the master of writing characters that are very warm, in some ways very likable, very memorable. He's really the master at writing character. And I think in this story we have three very interesting characters that I was glad to get to know. Three of them I think are all good in their hearts. It's just that they are in places in their lives and in society that have them maybe doing things, at least the two guys, that certainly doesn't maybe make us happy. Maybe it's not the way things should be, but I don't think they're bad guys. And I wish you were here to disagree with me about that, somebody. But anyway, disagree with me out loud in an email if you want. I would enjoy that very much. And we have a special guest today. I wanted to shoot class outside, but I went out a minute ago and it was windy and cloudy, and then it started to rain, and that's not good. But I have a special guest today. This is my fig tree, and this is a fig tree that was grown by my brother, my oldest brother Chris, who is a hobby fig tree grower. And my brother Chris has what Elisa has, planter's hands, just like my mom and my dad. The guy can grow anything, and he just has a sense for it. I'm pretty good at growing stuff. I know what I'm doing, but I just don't feel I have that special gift that my brother Chris has. But he's very encouraging to me, and many members of my family enjoy growing flowers, but really we like growing food best. So Chris gave me this fig tree. I've been taking it. It went dormant for the winter in the garage, and it can't tolerate any temperatures now that it's come back to life. Under 40 degrees, so I've been moving it inside and out, and it's really coming along. There's already about 1.5 inches of new growth on the ends of the stalks. New branches are budding, and every day the leaves grow at least half an inch or more, and it's just going to explode. So we'll check in with the fig tree as the semester goes on. But anyway, John Steinbeck's The Chrysanthemums. We're going to start by talking a little bit about the scene here in the Salinas Valley. So out in California, great place to visit. The Salinas Valley, John Steinbeck country, is a great place to grow stuff. You guys probably, if you eat vegetables, which you should, you probably eat lettuce and vegetables grown in the Salinas Valley many times a week. It is the nation's, America's salad bowl. This is up in the mountains, kind of in the higher part, and our lovable, marvelous woman, Elisa Allen, is working with her flowers, and she has these planter hands, a natural gift for growing. And she grows these beautiful chrysanthemums. They're not like the mums around here in the fall. These are great big flowers. However, the scene, though, is definitely one that describes her as being boxed in. The high gray flannel fog of winter closed off the Salinas Valley from the sky and from the rest of the world. She's up there. She's the only woman here. There's her husband, the men who come and do business with him, the men who work on the farm, and of course the tinker, who we'll get to a little bit later. But she seems to be the only woman, and we don't know anything about. We don't see any children. There's no mention of children. Should we come to the conclusion that she and her husband are unable to have children? I don't know. That might be pushing it. but they certainly they seem to be of an age where they should have kids around if that's something they wanted or were able to produce. So there's an absence here of children, a palpable absence of children. But she has her flowers to grow, and she does it well. She is excluded, though, from the everyday business. She watches her husband talking to two businessmen, and then her husband comes over and says what lovely flowers she's growing. These great descriptions of her digging into the earth. I think of her when I dig into my garden outside. And the husband says offhandedly, some of those yellow chrysanthemums you had last year were 10 inches across. I wish you'd work out in the orchard and raise some apples that big. Her eyes sharpened. Maybe I could do it too. I have a gift with things, all right. My mother had it. She could stick anything in the ground and make it grow. She said it was having planter's hands that knew how to do it. Well, it sure works with flowers. You know, he wasn't really being serious. The idea of a woman working on the farm in the business part of the agriculture is just not something that would have happened in this time period about 100 years ago. And it's a shame, because she'd probably do a better job than he does at growing things. And, you know, good, that'll be good. She's happy that he sold the cows. Yeah, she says that's good. She's a supportive wife. She digs into the earth some more. But the world that Steinbeck creates here at the beginning is one of isolation for Elisa Allen. She's alone with her flowers. I guess one could do worse than that in life, but you have a feeling that she's wanting to do more, to be more productive, to be more useful. And of course, she's certainly capable of it. Hey, it's a great example of women being oppressed and not allowed to do what they can do to contribute. The farm would be more successful. There would be better food coming off of it. That would be good if she were allowed to do it, but the just stupid, contrived rules of society is that she doesn't. That's not what she's going to do. So that's the scene that's set before the tinker arrives. And that's what I call the guy who travels here sharpening scissors and fixing pots. He's an itinerant tinker. He tinkers with things. So that's what I'm going to call him, the tinkerer. So he comes along, and you know, he's a salesman in a way. He's selling his services, and he's kind of tries to be funny, and you know, he's got this old dog. That's a bad dog in a fight when he gets started. And Eliza laughs. I see he is. How soon does he generally get started? And the man caught up her laughter and echoed it heartily. So he's a good salesman. He's agreeing with her, and ho ho ho, that's funny. That's a funny one right there. And she goes in. You know, he kind of goes in. Hey, you know, I've got this service for you. I can sharpen things. And you know, she does sort of envy his life. That sounds like a nice kind of way to live when he explains himself. His way of life is very much the opposite of hers. He's not grounded anywhere. He goes up and down the coast of the Pacific coast in California. He moves with the seasons in a way, and he fixes people's pots and pans, and he sharpens their things as he goes along. And we'll talk in a minute about how much she yearns for that kind of life herself. So he's kind of he's a businessman, and he tries a few times to get her to engage him in his services. You know, he says, you know, scissors is the worst thing. Most people just ruin scissors trying to sharpen them. She says, no, my scissors are all sharp. She's like, come on, buddy, move along. We had our laugh. I'm not here to do business. No, I tell you, I have nothing like that for you to do. No bent pots to fix. His face fell to an exaggerated sadness. So he's really playing the part here. He's trying to play on her sympathies. So he tries a rational argument, then he plays on her sympathies. I haven't anything for you to do. You know, she's like, come on, buddy, move along. He's working it though. You got to give the guy credit. I'm sorry, I haven't anything for you to do. His eyes left her face, and he's okay. So he's failed with her. Now he's looking around the ground. They roamed about, and he sees her chrysanthemums. What's them plants, ma'am? The irritation and resistance melted from Eliza's face. He found her hook. I don't know if any of you are future business people, but he found his way in. The flowers have nothing to do with his services, but he's going to connect with her, and next thing you know, she's getting him work to do, and he's making a little bit of money. Now, he does his work. He's not a con man. He provides his services. He's an honest salesman, I think. Kind of long. Oh yeah, they smell kind of nasty till you get used to them. It's a good bitter smell, she retorted, not nasty at all. He changed his tone quickly. I like the smell myself. So he sort of mistakenly insults the flowers, quickly changes his tune. And then he really screws up. Look, he says, I know a lady down the road a piece has got the nicest garden you ever seen. Got nearly every kind of flower, but no chrysanthemums. Last time I was mending a copper bottom pot wash tub for her. That's a hard job, but I do it good. He slips in a little plug for himself. She said to me, if you ever run across some nice chrysanthemums, I wish you'd try to get me a few seeds. That's what she told me. Eliza's eyes grew alert and eager. She couldn't have known much about chrysanthemums. You can raise them from seed, but it's much easier to root them from little sprouts. So he's lying. This other woman that he's made up, the gardener, was not going to ask for chrysanthemum seeds. She knows what she's talking about. She's a gardener. He's not a gardener. He doesn't even own any dirt. So, as a shrewd reader, we go, this guy's making up a story here. Making up a story. Beautiful, oh beautiful, her eyes shone. She tore off the battered hat and shook out her dark and pretty hair. I'll put them in the flower pot, and you can take them right with you. Come into the yard. Elisa ran excitedly. So Elisa's femininity varies widely throughout the story. She sort of has her hair up under a hat. She's wearing some of her husband's clothing. But here, the tinkerer, she sort of awakens. The womanliness awakens in her, and she releases her hair, and it flows down. It's quite lovely. She digs in. She gets a new flower pot to put the flowers in. Her bare hands are in the earth. There is a certain, I don't want to say quite eroticism, but a certain eroticism going on in this story. She gives very careful instructions for him to tell her. The other woman, this fake woman, they have to take root in about a month. Yeah. Did you ever hear of planting hands? Can't say I have, ma'am. And then she goes on to tell him about her planting hands. You can feel it. She was kneeling on the ground looking up at him. Her breast swelled passionately. The man's eyes narrowed. He looked away self-consciously. Maybe I know, he said. Sometimes in the night, in the wagon there. Eliza's voice grew husky. She broke in on him. I've never lived as you do, but I know what you mean. When the night is dark, why, the stars are sharp-pointed and there's quiet. Why, you rise up and go. Every pointed star gets driven into your body. It's like that, hot and sharp and lovely. So she imagines his marvelous life under the stars, moving all up and down the coast. Kneeling there, her hand went out toward his leg in the greasy black trousers. Her hesitant fingers almost touched the cloth. Then her hand dropped to the ground. She crouched low like a fawning dog. She's almost become submissive to him. She's so romanticized his itinerant life, moving life. Now, to his credit, he's honest with her here. It's nice, just like you say, only when you don't have no dinner, it ain't. He really probably could be going even further with her. Oh, it's marvelous out there. Hey, you got any knives for me to sharpen? Any saws? You got any saws in the barn? So he does, as she sort of really opens up, almost gives herself to him, he says, yeah, unless you ain't got no dinner. She stood up then very straight, and her face was ashamed. She held the flower pot out to him. So she's a little shamed at the effect of his interest, his sincere interest in her flowers. Well, it's not really sincere, but his interest in her, she's a little embarrassed at the effect that it's had. And then she does go and find some work for him. She gets a pile of saucepans, aluminum saucepans. Here, maybe you can fix these. So it worked.